In case you missed it, Google Analytics is changing all the time. There are new features being introduced, taken away, changed around. Who can keep up with that? Well, unless you are following with our channel, I want to give you a little bit of an update over the 5 trends that I have seen over the last few years inside of Google Analytics, and that hopefully will hint us at what is going on in the future. All and more coming up. Hey there, Measure Geeks, Julian here, back with another video. When I started out with Google Analytics, it still looked like this. It was 2007, I was an intern and just trying to figure out this tool, what all the numbers means and so on. Now obviously Google Analytics has changed over the years. Partly because they had to, they are changing technologies, changing circumstances, but in some ways they are also innovated a lot and made our lives easier. So today I thought I'd take a look at the big trends that have been going on in this product and keep you up to date on what has been going on if you have missed them. Maybe that will also hint us at what is going on in the future, where will this product develop into. Now as always, we got lots to cover. Let's dive in. Number 1, exporting data. Now previously, Google Analytics was really our one-stop shop when it came to web analytics. We logged in and the tool actually did everything for us. It gathered the data, it saved the data, it made it accessible so we can segment and analyze our data, and later on we could even share it in a little dashboard. Now the trend is definitely not anymore that everything should be centralized in Google Analytics, but with the introduction of the Google Marketing Platform, there are more tools out there that are more specialized. So for example, on the measurement side, we have Google Tag Manager. We can send that data into Google Analytics, but we could also send it into a data warehouse like Google BigQuery. We could then analyze our data or connect Google Analytics directly to Google BigQuery and then analyze the raw data. So we can actually get the raw data out nowadays. And finally, we can visualize our data in Data Studio. And the result of this trend? While Google Analytics still can do everything in one tool if you choose so, but you could also use these other specialized tools. The trend here is really that you can export the data now, and Google Analytics open itself up to many different avenues of using your data outside of the realm of Google Analytics. Number 2, implementation. How do you install Google Analytics? Well, nowadays you go into the admin section and what do you get? The G tag, the global site tag. That is Google Analytics' preferred way to be installed because Google has decided to centralize their code somehow. But you might be aware that there are many different other forms of installing the Google Analytics code onto your website. You could use Google Tag Manager, you could still use the Universal Analytics JS or the old codes, which are not really recommended anymore, GA.js or even Urchin. So which one should you choose? Well, that's actually a question for another video. We did some of them over there. But it is just important and interesting to know how you can nowadays import data into Google Analytics. It's not only done through one central snippet. You could also use the measurement protocol or upload data. So Google Analytics has become much more accessible and you might need to adjust your approach depending on the case. And one implementation method that I haven't really mentioned is the whole mobile thing with Firebase, which I'll get to in a second. But the trend here being Google Analytics doesn't live in a vacuum anymore on your website and this little tracking code. No, you have different implementation methods and you need to adjust to this, and maybe there will even be new ones out in the future. Now the third big trend is obviously privacy. With the introduction of the GDPR laws here in Europe or some other privacy laws in the US, there are some. Web analytics has been under scrutiny, let's put it this way. Different jurisdictions are looking to clamp down on the data, where it's going, how it's being used, and Google Analytics just is somehow in the crossfire here. At the same time, we all know that there are some browsers out there that now say they are the privacy browsers, and therefore they have started clamping down pretty hard on tracking codes in general. Google Analytics is among them and had to adjust their approach. So we saw a big adjustment on Google Analytics side. So first of all, you have these data processing agreements now that they pop up when you sign up to Google Analytics. You can configure much more, such as the data retention period, or you can also delete data from Google Analytics directly if you have the client ID of that user. So Google Analytics is keeping up with the trends here. They obviously can't solve everything within the tool because there are different rule sets out there, and they can only build little features that can hook into, for example, a consent management tool. But I definitely think this is a trend that will influence Google Analytics over the years to come, and maybe even make it less appealing because it's not this one-stop shop or tool that you can install and get all the data from. Depending on your jurisdiction, you really need to look at if you can use Google Analytics, which is a big concern, or if you might want to use other data tools to get that data out in order to make the most out of your Google Analytics data. So definitely a trend to watch within Google Analytics. And now here's the big trend number 4, app plus web. This is probably the biggest shift we have seen over the last few years in the Google Analytics product. Now, when Google Analytics first was conceptualized or first came out, it basically tracked websites. And there are the metrics of page views, for example, which are very important, sessions and so on. Obviously, a huge chunk of the internet traffic is nowadays mobile. So how did Google Analytics adjust to this? Well, they couldn't just throw it all into one property and make it somehow work, because the data is quite different on mobile than on the web. The web is much more standardized, whereas mobile is much more custom. So they had some attempts with Google Analytics for apps, and then there was universal analytics, so you could track theoretically through the measurement protocol. Then they came out with the Google Firebase product, which is more of a developer suite than an analytics product, but tied to that was an analytics product. And that was then renamed for Google Analytics for Firebase, but it was still specifically built for these mobile applications. And we had on the website still our normal Google Analytics. That is about to change because Google Analytics has introduced a new property, app plus web, which allows you to track data from your website and your mobile apps. What makes it so different is the data model behind it, because it's not based on page views, sessions, and so on anymore, but rather on events, which is a data model that is much more open, where you can send in an event with many different properties and are not tied to the events that we have in Google Analytics with category, action, and label. To make it easy on everybody, they also introduced some auto tracking, so page views would still be tracked automatically. But at the same time, since the data model changed quite a bit, the interface changed quite a bit as well, and you can already check it out and install it on your website. Now with this interface, we have new tools to analyze that data because we need to work on it quite differently than the standard reports we had in Google Analytics before. Now this is de facto the new version of Google Analytics, the de facto standard in a few years. And don't freak out right now, it's not quite finished yet and it doesn't have all the features that we have in Google Analytics, but it's getting closer and closer, and that's where the most updates come out for Google Analytics at the moment. So this is something you should definitely watch and maybe even get used to now, so you'll be ready for the migration in a few years. All right, let me stop myself right there, because this is actually me speaking from a few weeks after this video was filmed, and we have some great updates as well. That's why we are making the final point, number 5, AI or artificial intelligence. Now, I know this is an overused term and we are not talking about general AI here, but we all know that Google is heavily investing into machine learning. Just think of the projects like the Google Assistant or the project Waymo. Now, also in our Google Marketing Cloud, we have seen updates to Google Ads, which is now powered by powerful algorithms to create automatic campaigns for you, for example. And slowly, this is also coming to Google Analytics. So did you know that you can actually ask Google Analytics a question now? And Google Analytics will try to find the right report for you or give you a direct answer. We also have smart goals and intelligent events, but the thing that they recently announced was for the app plus web property, predictive analytics. So they've introduced 2 new metrics that weren't there before, which is purchase probability and churn probability. Now this is obviously super exciting because Google Analytics is going away from just displaying our data and making it searchable and analyzable to actually crunching it and then coming up with insights. But what we can see with this new introduction is that machine learning is something in the future that will be baked into Google Analytics. And that's interesting to see because Google Analytics was always this platform where we went to find answers and then after some analysis get insights out of it. But obviously they're making a transition here, which will take a few years, to really get to an insights machine where we go to find out interesting facts about our website or about our application. So that's exciting to see. All right, so there you have it. These are 5 trends you need to know about in Google Analytics. What do you think? Did I miss anything big? Where's Google Analytics going? I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below, and maybe we can get into a little bit of a discussion. One other thing, as you know, this channel is all about data. So let's give actually YouTube some data back to optimize their recommendation engine. Just hit that subscribe button or that like button, or both, and YouTube will get the signals to improve their algorithm to recommend us more. That's what I call a win-win, right? Now, my name is Julian. Till next time.